The webinar will begin in about 4 minutes, so please stay tuned. The webinar will begin in just a few minutes. Please stay tuned. The webinar will begin in just a couple of minutes. Please stay tuned. We've got about a minute until our webinar starts, so please grab a glass of water and get ready for the beginning of our webinar. Today is Wednesday, January 6th. Good morning and welcome to our webinar, SBA updates and critical information on PPP loan forgiveness and EIDL use of proceeds. It's being brought to you by the Buffalo District Office of the Small Business Administration, the Buffalo Niagara Chapter of SCORE, and our partner business assistance agencies who will be introducing themselves in a few minutes. I'm your host, Ted Galantowitz, and I'm the workshops coordinator for SCORE Buffalo Niagara. I'm also assisted by my co-coordinator for workshops at Buffalo Niagara SCORE, Nancy Sheehan. This session is being recorded, and the recording will be available via YouTube by tomorrow. The presentation slides will be sent to those of you who specifically request them. All attendee microphones will be muted during the presentation. Attendees who have accessed this presentation via direct Zoom link will have the ability to submit questions via the Zoom chat function. Those of you accessing this webinar via YouTube will not have that ability. The control for the chat box is found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will try to address the items in the chat box as appropriate during the presentation or at the end of the presentation. However, please understand that there are over 2,000 registrants for this webinar. So please, I ask you not to feel slighted if we do not get to address all the questions during the next hour, hour and a half. The presenter and I and Nancy Sheehan will be monitoring the chat box during the presentation, and we will attempt to get to certainly as many questions as we can. Before introducing our presenter, I'd like to have our partners take a minute to introduce themselves and their organizations. And I want to particularly thank all of our partner organizations, the ones that I'm going to introduce right now, for their support of small business and their partnering with the SBA and SCORE to support this webinar. First, I'd like to introduce Melanie McGovern of the Better Business Bureau of Upstate New York. Melanie?
Good morning, Ted. Thank you so much. I just want to thank Ted and the Buffalo Niagara SCORE chapter for the opportunity to include Better Business Bureau accredited businesses and our partners in today's session. BBB serves the 48 counties of upstate New York from our headquarters here in Buffalo. When the pandemic hit, we worked hard with our partners such as SBA and SCORE to bring our BBB accredited businesses the most up-to-date information that would affect their day-to-day operations. While we're all hopeful that 2021 is better than 2020, the pandemic is not over, and the best thing we can do as businesses and organizations is to educate ourselves. Greg and the SBA have been wonderful partners, and I look forward to today's presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Melanie. Next, I'd like to introduce Sarah Vesio of the Women's Business Center at Canisius College. Sarah?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you, Ted. I actually want to say thank you, Ted, for organizing this webinar, obviously so important and needed by so many people. I also wanted to thank Greg for putting together the presentation and the time that goes into it. Obviously, so many people have been looking for this information and there's consistent flow of information coming out. So putting it all together for us today is really, really appreciated. Now, as far as the Women's Business Center goes, I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Business Center at Canisius College. We're a private-public partnership between the college here in Buffalo and the Small Business Administration, who is our main funder. There are over 100 women's business centers across the country, and we are hosted in Buffalo, New York. The next closest is Syracuse, New York. And what we do is create education, connection, and community for women entrepreneurs in our area. And specifically, we create programming that really dives into advancing women entrepreneurs and their businesses. And we look forward to helping anybody out there that is looking for that support, specifically in women business ownership. Thanks so much, all. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks, Sarah. Next, I'd like to introduce Susan McCartney, and she's the director of the Small Business Center at Buffalo State College. Susan?
Good. Hey, Greg, thank you. Thanks for the invitation. To everyone online, great greetings from Buffalo, New York, which is in the most beautiful location in the United States. We're right next to Lake Erie, one of the most important sources of water within the world. And if you haven't been to Buffalo, you definitely want to make a visit soon. It's a great place to be. I'm excited to be on today because I am with the New York State Small Business Development Center. And the Small Business Development Centers are part of a national network So wherever you all are located, there will be a small business development center near you. We're very easy to find online, Small Business Development Center. We are a resource partner of the United States Small Business Administration. In Buffalo, we work very closely with Ted, who's with SCORE, with Greg Lindbergh, who is one of the top guns with the SBA. It's a very collaborative working relationship. The small business development centers, and you're going to meet two of our colleagues in Western New York who run centers, our primary services that we provide one-to-one confidential business counseling to entrepreneurs at no charge. You just set up an appointment and we're very happy to work with you. Our primary services include helping you to develop your business plan, helping you hone in on your target market, looking at your marketing and communication strategy, and very importantly, helping to prepare you to secure financing. So if you have any concerns about PPP or working to secure EIDL or other lending funding opportunities, an advisor at the Small Business Development Center would be very happy to assist you and look at your situation on a one-to-one basis in terms of your opportunities and concerns to make your business successful. So again, Ted, thank you very much. Greg, thank you. This is going to be a great program this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Next partner introduction, Lynn Oswald, who is the director of the Small Business Development Center at Niagara County Community College. Lynn?
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be part of the program. Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Melanie, for setting this up. Very important information, and this isn't a one and done program. You're going to have to stay in tune as all these new changes come out and things get solidified. So that's what we're all here for. I'm part of the same organization as Sue, and I cover the Niagara region. Again, another beautiful place to visit. My center provides the same services, and then we also focus, everyone on my team are financial specialists, which is very important right now as you're looking at cash flow and future cash needs. We also focus on agriculture and international trade. As Sarah said, for the Women's Business Center, being a national organization, the SBDC is as well, as is SCORE. So those of you who are joining from outside of the region, you really do need to reach out. You're not alone in this, and there are organizations near you. Just Google them, you'll find them. We're wonderful networks. We stay very connected, and if you reach out to one organization, you will be connected with the rest. So we hope you'll take advantage of the services, and thank you for letting me be on the call.
Thanks, Lynn. And Courtney Corotolo, who's the director of the Small Business Development Center at Jamestown Community College.
Good morning, everyone. Like Sue and Lynn, my colleagues in Erie and Niagara, we are also part of the New York Small Business Development Center. Our office covers Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, and Allegheny counties. We're always happy to help all of our small businesses in our region. We work with our colleagues across the state on different expertise. We have a social media expert in our office, so if anyone is interested, please reach out. You can find us online or on our Facebook or LinkedIn pages. And I want to remind everyone, and I'm sure Greg will mention this, unfortunately, we don't have the guidelines yet for the new stimulus package, but hopefully that information will be out soon. But we are here to help, so please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to help everybody that we can. Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, Courtney. I'd like to say a few words about SCORE. Again, this is Ted Galanowitz, your host. SCORE is committed to promoting the success of small business, as are our other partners. And SCORE does this through local and nationally available training events, one-on-one mentoring, and providing online informational resources. We're the volunteer arm of the Small Business Administration, and we've got hundreds of chapters and thousands of unpaid volunteers throughout the United States. Our Buffalo chapter has about 60 members, many of whom do mentoring. And our mentoring is free and confidential, and most of our educational events are free. You can contact us at buffaloniagara.score.org, And you can also contact SCORE on our national website, score.org. There are numerous business-related articles, templates, information about national local workshops, and of course, mentoring. So with that, and having introduced our partners, the only one I have not introduced is our presenter. And his name has been mentioned a few times. It's Greg Lindberg, who's with the Buffalo District SBA office. And he's going to be our presenter on this important topic, which I think is important for all businesses, big and small. So at this point, Greg, I'm going to ask you to go ahead. You have your slides prepared, and the microphone and the controls are yours.
All right, Ted, thank you very much. And thank you to all our partners on this program. Ted, thank you for getting it organized. And thank you to all the businesses that are here to listen to this today. It's 2020 was a year. 2021, we're looking for some, hopefully moving in the right direction and starting to get our businesses back on track. There's a lot of rules and different programs that are going to be available and not available, but thank you to the small business owners that have stuck through and have worked and lived and done all the things you've had to do through 2020 to keep your businesses afloat and to keep moving forward. We know it's been a very, very challenging year. So this morning, we're going to talk about best practices for PPP loan forgiveness, some use of if you got an economic injury disaster loan, an EIDL loan, some of the ways you can use those funds. These are questions we're getting a lot at our office, and we know there's a lot of confusion on the forgiveness for PPP. So we thought we'd kind of break this down and give you some upfront information to help you kind of get your ducks in a row so that you, when it's time to submit your forgiveness application to the bank, are ready to do that. All right. So I'm Greg Lindberg from the U.S. Small Business Administration, Buffalo District Office. I'm an economic development specialist there. Our SBA Buffalo District Office covers the 8 counties of Western New York and the 6 counties that surround Rochester. So, and you've met a bunch of our partners on the phone here or on the Zoom here already. So please reach out to us. I've been with the SBA for 7-8 years now. It'll be 8 years in January here. And it is always amazing to me that people don't know the services that SCORE and the Small Business Development Center and the Women's Business Center and Better Business Bureau and all these organizations provide, because there's a lot of help out there for you, the business owner. And a lot of times you just need to pick up the phone and call us, and we're here for you. So we want to just let you know that please reach out to us. We're here. We can help. Whatever questions they may be, whether it's on PPP and some of these programs that have come out from the government to help businesses, whether it's you're thinking about starting a business, whether you're in business and want to, sell it at some point, we can do it all. So please reach out to us. A lot of talented, knowledgeable people that can help you out and give you the information that you need. All right, so first of all, we're going to start by just giving a little bit of an update. I wish I had more of an update, but we're still waiting on some things. As most people know, the new COVID relief and omnibus government package passed and was signed into law on Christmas Day. So there are some timeframes to begin getting rules and regulations written. And then after those rules and regulations are officially written, then it needs to be operationalized, which it in many cases means setting up online systems and portals. So just so you know, there is a PPP round 2 coming for some businesses. You may or may not be eligible based on what the terms of the new program are. one of the things that I've read in the law is that your business needs to be down 25% in at least one quarter from 2019 to 2020 to be eligible for that round two. So stay tuned. More is coming on that. There is a special carve out for those in food service, those NAICS codes that start with 72. They may be able to get a little bit more money on the PPP round two. So again, stay tuned. We don't expect banks to begin accepting these applications probably until the end of January. That's by the time all the systems and everything get into place and all the rules are written and all that. That's most likely what we're looking at. So hold tight. We will have more information coming. There are going to be some EIDL advance grants, which were given out before. There'll be some more of those on the way. Again, rules are not officially set in stone yet, but that may be something your business is eligible for. And the shuttered venue grants, this is a situation if, you think of a theater or a music venue, a comedy club, things that haven't been able to open at all. There will be some additional funding there as well. So stay tuned on those, more to come. One of the thing we're here to talk about today is that PPP loan forgiveness. We know this is a big question from folks. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more here. And one other big update is that the economic injury disaster loan, which is the 30-year loan at 3.75%, that's distributed directly from the SBA, from the federal government. The declaration on that has been extended till 12/31 of 2021. Initially, that was going to expire at the end of 2020, but that's been extended. So if you're a business who hasn't taken that loan but thinks it might be advantageous for you or helpful, to get through the next little while here to have some working capital to be able to do things, that's a situation that you may want to look at that loan as well. Again, and I'll just preface all of this by saying this presentation is current as of today. Everything is changing on the fly. We're doing the best we can to keep up with the information. We know it's a lot of information for you. It's a lot of information for us too. So we're trying to get it out to you and give you the best that we have. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, before I kick over to the next slide, also say that here in Buffalo, we're pretty excited for Saturday at 1 o'clock for the Buffalo Bills to have a playoff game here. So a lot to look forward to. And but we'll get started by talking about some of the key pieces on the PPP loan forgiveness and some of the things you need to think about. So if you got a PPP loan, these loans were done, back April, May, June, July. There are a couple key things you need to know. First of all, you took that money as a loan that was forgivable if you spent the funds appropriately. The big piece of that was on payroll costs, right? At least 60% of those funds needed to be spent on payroll. So paying yourself, paying your employees, whatever it may be, in order for it to be forgivable. And there were a few carve outs in there that salary and wages couldn't be reduced by more than 25%. And that you must maintain the average full-time equivalent employees that you submitted during the forgiveness application originally with the bank in order to get full forgiveness. Now, there are a few safe harbors that relate to your business being closed and employees may be leaving the business for one reason or the other. It could have been COVID related, whatever else it may be. You'll have to provide that kind of documentation if there is an issue with your full-time equivalent employees not being at the number that you originally borrowed the money at. So that's something you as a business just need to track and understand where you're at, and also provide documentation and information. Okay. Those eligible costs could be spent over an 8-week or 24-week covered period. Some of the other things, that the other 40% of the money could be spent on business rent payments, mortgage interest, just the interest on the mortgage, not the actual mortgage payment itself, and utility payments. So for us and for banks, you know, you were allowed to borrow 10 weeks of payroll, and you have 24 weeks to spend that money. So our suggestion to make things easier for you and the bank is that, you know, if you spent 100% of that money on payroll over that time, that you know, charge that money to payroll, and make it a little easier on yourself and a little easier on the bank when they're doing this forgiveness application. So most businesses should be able to, you know, have spent 100% of the money on payroll during their covered period. So to make life easier for you and the bank, again, when you're submitting this, the best applications really are 100% on payroll costs, and then you only have to, you know, get one kind of documentation and get that together to the bank. Now, if you don't meet that 100%, then you can look at, you know, your business rent payments, mortgage interest, and utilities. But there are a lot of questions and confusion around, you know, what do I do? But if you can, the best and easiest way is to go 100% payroll on this. All right. So when we talk about the covered period, it could either be an 8-week covered period or a 24-week covered period. So when the law was initially written, it was an 8-week covered period. So borrowers who received loans before June 5th of 2020 are able to choose between an 8-week covered period or a 24-week covered period. This is because there was an update to that law that enabled a little bit more flexibility for small businesses. If you received your PPP loan after June 5th of 2020, everyone was automatically given the 24-week covered period. So for most people, it just makes sense to use the 24-week covered period. It makes it a little easier. There's less stress in the math, you know, even if you had, you know, $500 left or something that was just outside of that 8-week window, you know, just use the 24-week covered period when you submit your application. Let the bank know you're going to do that. And that should make your loan forgiveness process easier and allow you to fit, you know, the funds into that period without a problem. The terms of the PPP loan, a 1% interest rate. Okay, so anything that you have left on the loan, there is a 1% interest rate. It is a 2-year or 5-year term, depending on the date of the loan. If the loan originated again before June 5th, the term is 2 years, unless you are able to come to an agreement with your lender to extend the maturity on it. And if the loan was originated after June 5th, the term is 5 years. Okay, so we don't want anybody to have any money left over. That's the whole point of this. Hopefully you've spent the funds appropriately, used them where you needed to, paid your payroll with them. And that's why, you know, we recommend the 24-week covered period. And hopefully folks, again, shouldn't have anything left over if they've used the money the way they should. You had 24 weeks to spend 10 weeks of payroll. So even if you're down employees and didn't have as many hours, hopefully, you know, you still use those funds appropriately and aren't going to have any left over. But if you do, these are the terms that the funds would be used at. All right, so extended deferral period ends either one of two ways. So when do you make your payments, right? If you have anything left on the date the SBA remits the borrower's loan forgiveness amount to the lender, right? So once you submit your forgiveness application, so your forgiveness application number one will go through the bank. They are taking them and they're processing them, but there was about $600 billion lent on PPP loans, and I don't have the exact number of actual loans, with me here, but the volume was just off the charts, right? This is something that affected everybody across the country. This is something that there was a backlog, as trying to get a PPP loan. There's going to be a backlog on the forgiveness process. So just stick with it. Stay in contact with your banker. Keep talking to them. And when you get, most of banks are accepting this through their own online portal. When you get to that point, have your information ready, be ready to go. Okay. If you don't apply for forgiveness, which, everyone should, I don't know why you wouldn't. Your first payment is automatically due 10 months after the end of the borrower's loan forgiveness covered period. So if you haven't submitted forgiveness and your loan was done before June 5th, then you're automatically have an 8-week covered period. Again, after it's 24 weeks. So you want to make sure you get this submitted in the application process. And if you have questions on forgiveness or anything else related to this, our partners at SCORE and Small Business Development Center, Women's Business Center can all help you out in getting the information together to submit a good forgiveness application. All right. So if you look at this example, if a borrower's PPP loan is dispersed on June 25th, 2020, the 24-week covered period ends on December 10th, 2020. Okay. If the borrower does not submit a loan forgiveness application to its lender by October 10, 2021, the borrower has got to begin making payments on or after that date, right? So you have 10 months from the end of your covered period to begin making those payments if you do not apply for forgiveness. But apply for forgiveness. There's no reason not to. And again, hopefully you've done the things you're supposed to do with this money. That's the important thing. All right. So the EIDL advance amount that was deducted from your forgiveness, we now have a win. This is part of the new legislation. Any EIDL advance that you got, which was between $1,000 and $10,000 grant for number of employees, it was based on $1,000 per head. When these funds started to come out, was subtracted from PPP loan forgiveness before. It is now not. So that's a big win for those of you, that have applied for forgiveness or are looking at it. That number between $1,000 and $10,000 was going to be left over as what most folks would have had in that 1% loan. So now, that stipulation has been removed, which is a big deal for folks because nobody wants, this between $1,000 and $10,000 almost a penalty to businesses, right? So that has changed. That is a big win for everybody. So we were happy to see that. That'll cut out some of the confusion and also make most of these loans 100% forgivable, because that was honestly the portion that was left over on many of the loans as far as forgiveness goes initially. So a win there. That EIDL advance amount used to be create a reduction in loan forgiveness. It does not anymore, so that's not going to affect your PPP loan amount. So just as a heads up there, that's a win for small business. If you're a sole proprietor or independent contractor and you don't have employees, hopefully as you spent this money, you documented the payments to yourself as payroll or an owner draw, so it's easy for the bank to see. Hopefully it was a consistent kind of payment. You were allowed to borrow 10 weeks of payroll. That's basically to pay yourself. So hopefully those 10 weeks of payroll were easily spent by you. Just on your own salary, you can use it for, again, for 100% forgiveness. And if you needed to, if you didn't pay yourself and use some of it for rent, that's fine too. But you're still going to need to show you paid yourself at least 60% in order to qualify for the 100% loan forgiveness. All right, so some steps for loan forgiveness. First of all, you know, you want to contact your PPP lender and complete the correct form. So there are a few different SBA forms, as 3508, 3508EZ, 3508S. Now you can use those forms to help get you prepared. But many of the banks are taking this information online anyways through their own portals. So, you know, you can use the SBA forms to help you get all your information in one place. But again, most of that is going to be submitted online through your bank, depending on who you used. That's step one. Okay, you want to talk to your lender, figure out how they're accepting applications, when they're accepting applications. You know, we tend to think there are probably, you know, at least 50% of borrowers still haven't, you know, applied for forgiveness and haven't, you know, been able to submit an application yet. So be in touch with your lender, whoever you got your funds from initially, to figure out what their process is and where you might be in the line to begin to submit your forgiveness application as well. All right, so the next step is compiling your documentation. There's a lot of information here, and there's too much information on this slide, but I leave it on here because this presentation lives after I give it, and it's I believe a resource for you to be able to understand some of the forms that they're looking for. So, you know, when it comes to payroll, you need to provide documentation for all the payroll periods that overlapped with a covered period or your alternative covered period. This is important. Now, if you have bank account statements, if you pay directly from your account, great. If you have a third-party payroll service provider, this makes life really easy because you have those payroll records and reports from each period, which helps the forgiveness process along. Any tax forms that you may need, payroll tax filings, IRS 941 quarterlies. That's the information that you're going to have to submit when we talk about, you know, the payroll piece of this, and that's at least 60%. And we said, well, it's easier if you do 100% on payroll because that's just one set of documentation that you may need to give to somebody then. So, you know, if you have that third-party payroll service, that's a huge help, makes life easy. Your IRS 941 quarterlies are going to be important. So just know the forms that you're going to have to use to back up what you've done. Okay. State quarterly business and individual employee wage reporting, unemployment insurance tax filings. Okay. Payment receipts, canceled checks, or account statements documenting the amount of any employer contribution to health insurance and retirement plans. Okay. That you're thinking about including. Non-payroll. So for non-payroll stuff, again, what is non-payroll? Non-payroll is the rent payments. It is mortgage interest, and it is your utilities. Okay. All of these need to show that the services existed prior to February 15th of 2020. You know, when you're submitting this. Okay. You know, part of this PPP initially was that your business had to be up and running before that date, but also you need to have your utilities and rent and that sort of stuff already under contract. You know, before that February 15th date, so you'll have to show that was the case. And again, So as we move to the non-payroll stuff, it's just more documentation. Why not make it easy for you and the bank and just do 100% on payroll and only have to compile X amount of documentation. Now there is a much easier one-page form apparently coming as well. I don't have as much information on that. I believe it's going to be for PPP loans 150,000 or less, but we're still waiting on the regulations there. So the other point of this is you may, if you're about to submit a forgiveness application, you may want to hold tight on it till the end of the month till we get the rest of our information here. Most folks, if you use the 10-month window there before your first payment is due, aren't going to have a payment due yet. If you got your PPP loan initially, then it's getting closer. But so again, your business mortgage interest payments, okay? So that is not the actual mortgage payment itself. It is just the interest on the mortgage. Business rent or lease payments. So you're going to have a copy of the lease agreements, receipts, canceled checks for this stuff. And again, the utility payments, copies of invoices, receipts, canceled checks, or account statements. So, and I'll just say it again because the biggest point I want to drive home today is that make this easy for yourself. There is enough stuff that you've had to deal with over the last year, complications and everything else. Do this 100% payroll and you will make your life and the bank's life easier. It's just one set of documentation that you have to do. Again, and if you can't do that, then you have to go into these other things. But let's try to make it easy for ourselves. All right, after you've gathered the appropriate documentation, you want to submit the forgiveness form and documentation to your PPP lender. This is the person that you got the money from initially. Okay. And then you want to continue to communicate with your lender throughout the process. SBA reserves the right to review any loans, audit any loans throughout the process. So no matter if you've done an easy form and haven't had to submit certain documentation, the recommendation to you as a business owner is to, just like your tax returns, put the information in one place, file it together, save it for the next 7 years, just in case. You never know. And audits and reviews are done all the time on these types of programs. So, if, a couple of years from now, SBA comes calling and says they want to review your loan and the things, that you spent the money on, then you have that information put together. Make your own PPP manila envelope that's sealed and closed, so that throw it in the drawer, and then someday, if they do come calling, you'll have that information for any questions that may be asked. All right, so a couple of tips from a banker, somebody who's processing these loan forgiveness applications. The first one from them is understand the difference between the 8-week covered period versus the 24-week covered period. The banks are, noticing, and, which is why we talk about it, that this often makes the difference between partial or full forgiveness, okay? Using the 24-week covered period just makes sense. It makes everything easier. And you were allowed to borrow 10 weeks of payroll. You have 24 weeks to spend it. The math should work out pretty well to do these applications 100% on the payroll side for forgiveness. All right. Make it easy for yourself, make it easy for the bank. Then you don't have to worry about a lot of the, other things that, I've talked to some folks that have a rent payment that falls just outside of their 8-week period. And it's, they have to use that to get their forgiveness for whatever reason. But that's fine. Use the 24-week period and it's not going to be a problem. Okay. So make sure you opt into that 24-week covered period. make it easy for yourselves. When available, provide third-party payroll reports in lieu of internal reports. And again, you know, that these third-party payroll services, and this is right from the bank, it just makes it easier for them in processing your loan forgiveness application when you've had a third party that's providing the information. And so just so you know, right, if you use that's where you're going to get this done. If you're using your IRS 941 quarterlies, be sure to include copies of the corresponding bank statements, okay, for the transfers of the funds, okay? You want to make sure you've got that taken care of. And when supplying other eligible expenses as part of your forgiveness application, if you don't do 100% on payroll and you use rent payments or whatever else, the bank says, right, you need to make sure to have proof that those costs were incurred before 2/15/2020, that you had a utility agreement before that date, that you had a lease that was you know, agreed to and signed before that date. If you don't, it's going to create a delay in the processing, as the banker says here, because that expense is only considered eligible with prior proof that the agreement was in force. All right, a quick note on EIDL here, and I know this is something that, you know, folks ask a lot of questions about. You know, SBA has done a lot of economic injury disaster loans. What can you do with those funds? Trying to just break it down simply here. You know, your EIDL proceeds can be used for general operating expenses for your business. This can include purchase of supplies, payroll, PPE, advertising, regular loan principal payments, working capital, and other fixed expenses. So working capital, monthly payments, pretty much all of that falls into you know, monthly obligations. All that is pretty much you know, an eligible use of proceeds. Some ways that those funds cannot be used: physical repairs, expansion, you know, purchasing more fixed assets, bonuses, owner distributions, refinancing existing debt. So, you know, when you get asked how you used your EIDL proceeds, right, these are month to month, you know, working capital type obligations that you can spend, right? Payroll, advertising, regular loan payments. You can make a regular loan payment or a credit card payment with it. You just can't pay off the entire credit card balance or the entire loan, you know, using these EIDL proceeds to, you know, refinance that existing debt. So for you as a business owner, just keep track of how you're using the funds. And again, you know, make it easy if you can. You know, focus on, you know, the fact that maybe you're using it for payroll or regular loan payments or whatever else it may be. You know, so that if anybody does, you know, ask in a review of this at some point, that you have, you know, that information and can easily produce it. You know, and just a note, PPP and EIDL funds cannot be used for the same purpose. So what that basically means is you can't, you know, charge, you know, the month or two of payroll in June and July to your PPP loan and say that you also, you know, in June and July, used your EIDL funds to pay payroll for your business. So just be aware of that. I mean, and basically the trip is there. You know, you can't charge something to PPP loan forgiveness that you've used your EIDL funds to spend. Okay. You know, for help and assistance, these are all organizations that are SBA resource partners. So the U.S. Small Business Administration funds all of these organizations. So you've met folks from SCORE, our small business development centers, our women's business centers, our veteran business outreach centers. And this is actually a map of the small business development centers in New York State and their different satellite offices. And I couldn't find a nice SCORE map like this, but I thought, this just shows the coverage in New York State alone. And SCORE has chapters all throughout the state in the same way. I think there's 3 or 4 women's business centers, at least in New York State. Sarah would have to check me on that, but just, you can see that the help is there, and we're a phone call away, we're an email away. Even though we're not meeting in person right now, we can do this stuff over the phone or via Zoom. And we're here to make this an easier process for you. It's been hard enough to be a small business owner, dealing with, COVID and employees and, this pandemic that has, hurt most of us as business owners, right? So please reach out. Sometimes just even a 5 or 10 minute conversation can really change the way that somebody's looking at something or feels about something, and just get you on the right path to talk to the right people to make something work. So we're here for you. Again, SBA funds all of these organizations in one way or another. This is the network and the resources that we bring to the table to help you, the business owner, be successful, answer your questions, and get you through here. So we can all hopefully get to spring and summer and begin to start really revving things up and opening things up the rest of the way here. So a couple of places that if you want to dig deeper and get more information, the U.S. Treasury website is the first place all these PPP rules are posted. They're then posted on our SBA website as well. But this is the legalese, federally written stuff on the Treasury website, the rules and all that. The reading is sometimes a little mind-numbing the way these things are written, but important for you to understand. And if you're looking for a specific piece of information, you can go to that site. You can take a look, and my suggestion is you do a Control F in some of the PDFs and find words and information you're looking for to help kind of cut through it and maybe get the answer you're looking for. But if you don't want to spend all that time, you can always give us a call or one of our resource partners a call at SCORE or the Small Business Development Center or Women's Business Center, right? And get some more information as well. So, all right. And with that, Ted, that's where I'm going to hold up as far as a presentation goes. And if you and Nancy want to manage the chat box at all and maybe ask a few questions here, we could go through that now.
Well, thanks, Greg. We have had a ton of questions. As a matter of fact,
I've seen it dinging.
I've tried to keep up with what questions have been asked here, and some of them are extremely detailed. And I'm not going to try and give you the extremely detailed ones.
Can I just anybody that has if your question is quite detailed, you can see my contact information on the screen here right now. Email me at gregory.lindberg@sba.gov, and we'll work through some of those that way. I think Ted's going to kind of package some of these together so we can get the more general ones that are applicable across, right?
Yeah, well, let me go ahead and put some of the general ones to you, or the more general ones. But the first one, and I'm going to take them more as I have addressed them or tried to copy them down, starting at from the beginning questions. The first one was, I'm changing my company status from sole proprietor to LLC. Does it affect my current PPP loan or future PPP loan application?
It shouldn't, but it depends. It depends on when you're changing. I'm guessing It's not going to affect your previous one. It probably shouldn't affect a new one based on the fact that if you haven't changed over yet, you're still going to be applying in the same manner. But not sure exactly based on when your company is becoming an LLC, and it matters about how you pay yourself there.
Okay. Second question, I received my PPP loan in May of 2020. I've called the bank several times for regarding forgiveness. They'll get the response from the bank is they'll get to my loan sometime in the future. Is that normal? Should I be concerned about missing PPP forgiveness? And by the way, we've had a number of questions about the banks and about their timely response to situations like this.
All right. So our banks have been great partners in this. Without them, this money would never have even gotten on the street as fast as it did. The reason we use the banks for these programs was the ability to get money in people's hands quicker. If anybody, we don't have the mechanisms at SBA to make something of this magnitude work. So, we thank the banks for, making this happen. But the answer is yes, right? It takes a while. And to be honest, banks were waiting for Congress, which is why they weren't accepting applications for a long time, because they wanted to see what changes were going to be in any new COVID relief package that happened. So banks waited and waited, and no new COVID relief package came. And then Congress finally gets one done after banks started accepting applications. And now banks are also in the precarious place. I talked about one thing, that the EIDL advance no longer needs to be deducted. You're not going to be penalized on your PPP loan forgiveness. That's the sort of stuff that banks were waiting for, because they didn't want to have to double back on these things, which they're.
Oh boy, I think we got Greg frozen here. Okay. That being the case, let me ask the other partners. I think Greg's going to have to kind of phone back in here to the session. But as far as our other partners here, any information or reaction to the business about how banks are getting back to those people that have gotten the PPP loans, EIDL loans, and the speed at which they're doing that?
And everyone, I know several banks are offering invitations for people to apply for their forgiveness. So I would reach out to your bank, see how they are going to be accepting applications, and they are doing it on a rolling invitation at this point.
Okay. Okay, Nancy, your microphone is off. I can't hear you. There you go. Still can't hear you. Let me go with another question and see if any of our other partners here have a response. The question was, is EIDL advance a grant? Do I need to have that forgiven? You may have addressed that already. Any one of our partners want to?
Ted, Sue McCartney, it is a grant. There is no payback of the EIDL. It was an exceptional situation.
Okay.
And the important lesson today was that is no longer deducted from your PPP. Originally it was, no longer. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Here's one I think maybe we all can answer. I live in Mississippi. Can I still, and this broadcast really is concentrated on New York State. Can I still apply for an EIDL?
I'll take that. Yes. Yes, of course. Yes.
Okay. I thought that was one that we needed to make sure that was answered.
Greg did just mention that that was extended throughout the whole year. So it was supposed to end at the end of 2020, but now it's extended throughout the remainder of 2021.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if anybody can go ahead and address this one. Can a Uber driver apply for a PPP loan? Any takers on that one?
I'll jump in on that one. Yes, as a sole proprietor, they are eligible for the PPP. We haven't seen the rules on the new rollout, but I'm assuming it'll be very similar. You'll just need to be able to track your income for the period that you'll be requesting.
Okay.
Having said that, I do want to clarify, though, that you have to if you're collecting unemployment as a sole proprietor, because the rules were flexible in the last go round, there's always going to be some very specific nuances. So if you are talking to an SBDC or a Women's Business Center SCORE, someone in your region, just to make sure that you are walking through how it fits to your particular business.
Okay. And we had several questions that applied to seasonal employers. We'll have to get to those questions with Greg at another time, or through a written response from the SBA on those things. Can I ask my partners here any other responses that they have, or points that they would like to make to close out our presentation today?
Ted, I want to mention that Greg just put a message through to make him the host, and he believes he'd be able to get on. Okay? Because I think he has the most wisdom regarding these federal programs. Thank you.
Okay, Logan, if you can go ahead and make Greg the host. Greg is back on. Go ahead, Greg.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, very good. All right.
Must
Technology,
be cold.
great when it works.
Must be cold in your part of the New York State. You were frozen there.
Frozen internet. So
frozen internet. Very good. Are you ready for some more questions?
Let's do it.
Okay. I heard that if you use PPP loan only for payroll, that it could affect your QBI during taxes.
So that was another thing that is changed in this law. So initially, PPP the funds that you got for PPP are not taxable, but you were not going to be allowed to use that for deductions. That has also supposedly changed in the new law, so that you will still be able to use the payroll and expenses as deductions on your tax return. Excuse me, and won't be penalized for that.
Okay. Okay, with regard to PPP, what documents are required for self-employed sole proprietors? Just showing funds deposited in our own account as salary?
Yes, exactly. So if you labeled the checks as salary or owner draw or whatever it may be, that's the best way, but you're going to have to show the funds, moving through the bank basically to get to you for payment.
Okay. Is the SBA going to revise the 3508s or issue a new form? And
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, I believe there is going to be maybe a new one pager that is going to be for a shorter form for submission, but hold tight. We don't know the answer to that yet. And that's why I say you may want to just hold off for another couple of weeks here on your forgiveness application anyway, just because once all the rules are written and regulations are finalized and then this gets operationalized, then we'll all be up and humming and know what's really going on.
okay. If the second round of PPP is expected to begin at the end of January and terminates at the end of March, that leaves 8 weeks for borrowers to apply. Is that correct?
That would be the time, yeah. So, and it's either that or the, I think it's 285 billion or something that they set aside for it. So, whichever expires first, the time limit or the funds, and we don't know what sorts of extensions or anything else might be given. We can only work within the what we have now. And again, I think you're going to have to show some sort of about a 25% drop in revenue from one quarter from 2019 to 2020, even to be eligible for round two. They're going to make sure it gets in the hands of the businesses that definitely really need it this time.
Okay. I got the first round of EIDL loan. So can I apply for a second EIDL loan?
No, the EIDL loan is a one shot. There may be something on the EIDL Advanced Grant that you could potentially be eligible for. There's more coming with that, but I wish we just don't have the information. It's one of those things, Ted, we scheduled this webinar to talk about PPP loan forgiveness. And at that time, it didn't really look like they were going to get anything done on the COVID relief bill. And then we got all this information right about Christmas time over the holidays. Great time for it to happen when everybody's on vacation anyway. So we're, I think, playing a little bit of catch up here. So
I got an EIDL loan for $150,000. Can I now apply to get more for working capital?
maybe. So we're not sure if there's going to be an up on the limit or anything. Again, stay tuned. Keep an eye on emails from SBA, SCORE, your small business development centers, Women's Business Center, Better Business Bureau. Everybody, we're going to have more information. We just don't have the exact specifics on this stuff yet.
Okay. I'm actually going to go to the last question that was asked here.
And I don't want to give people wrong information at this point. I've read what's there, but you never know if things change.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this is a fundamental question here. Is the EIDL loan I'm sorry. Where is that? Is the EIDL loan and the PPP loan the same? If not, is the EIDL loan eligible for forgiveness? Where can I find the forgiveness EIDL application?
So the PPP and EIDL loans are not the same. They're different programs. The PPP loan is the only one that's forgivable. The EIDL loan is a loan that's going to be repaid over 30 years at 3.75% interest. So, PPP, if you've used the funds correctly, is forgivable. EIDL is not forgivable. There may be some EIDL advance grants, and you may have gotten one of those that are not that do not have to be repaid, but the loan itself you definitely need to repay, and there's no look at that being forgivable at all.
I think the answer to this question is yes, but do you have to apply for forgiveness for a PPP loan?
Yeah, yes. Well, you don't, but you're going to have to start making payments after 10 months. So if you want forgiveness, you're going to have to apply for it in one way or another, and stay tuned and listen to your bank about how they'll be accepting those applications.
Is just the $10,000 portion of the EIDL forgivable, or the entire amount as was awarded?
So the EIDL advance grant is different from the EIDL loan. So EIDL, again, EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. None of that is forgivable. The EIDL advance grant, you do not have to repay. So those are two different things. The EIDL advance grant, those were earlier in the process, and I think they ran out of money about, the last week of June or something. But that was the money that just kind of showed up in your bank account, and it was between $1,000 and $10,000, and it was $1,000 per employee that you had at your business, or if you're a sole proprietor, it was just you got $1,000. Now, the EIDL advance, the EIDL loan was something where you had to do much more paperwork and went through an online interface. You got an offer of $50,000 of up to $150,000. Could have been $3,000, $5,000. Everybody got different offer amounts. That is a loan that you had to take separately, and that must be repaid. So the EIDL loan has to be repaid. The EIDL advance grant does not have to be repaid, and they're two separate things there.
Is the 10 months when repayment begins from end of the 8-week period, or from the funding date?
From the end of the 8 or 24-week covered period, depending on when you got your loan.
Okay. Well, the questions are coming in fast and furious here. It's okay. This is from let's see. We provide therapy and received first round of PPP loan. Are we still eligible for the second round?
Maybe. I believe the big, eligibility question is going to be on the 25% reduction in revenue in one of the 4 quarters, 2019 versus 2020. So the answer is maybe. We're not specifically sure yet, but if your revenue was down more than 25% in 1 quarter, 2019 versus 2020, that's what they're going to be basing PPP eligibility on.
Okay. I'm going to ask our partners if they noticed any particular questions in the chat that they thought should be addressed.
So timing to spend your EIDL loan, I'm just seeing stuff pop up here on my screen. There is no time. I mean, it's a 30-year loan, so you've got time to spend it. Let me just see.
And by the way, while you're looking at that, Greg, just for a second, I just want to mention anybody that has asked for the slides, we're going to go through the chat and make sure that you get copies of the slides. That's not an issue. So over the next day, you should be receiving that. We're going to get that out. We're going to get that out to everybody. There's just you know, a huge amount of information that you have on your slides. I think that's going to be important, and will help people to refer to that going forward. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ted, you said the questions are coming in fast and furious, and you weren't kidding. I was trying to help out, and a couple as they popped up, replying to some people that I know Greg had gone over today, and just wanted to reiterate that information. But I was just wondering if you could share the thought process. You want to put in a couple of your SCORE mentors, SBDC counselors, you want to put some emails in to have people follow up, or there are just so many, I don't know if you'd be able to all these questions today.
Well, we're going to have to talk about that with Greg because I mean the knowledge source I think is SBA, and that's where we certainly get all our information from. But from my point of view, what I expect to do is to cull through the questions. Certainly the more detailed ones we're going to get over to Greg, the ones that can easily be answered, or that we know that we've already answered here in the session. We're going to put those on the side. But again, Greg has gone ahead and requested anybody with very detailed questions to go ahead and contact him on that. So we will rely on that. We'll also take a look at what we can do to get out answers to the questions, the ones that aren't so very specialized that they would require the questioner to go directly to SBA. And I think SBA has a hotline too, also for questions, don't they, Greg?
Yeah, so, and one of the things we can do here, I know we did this with Melanie and the Better Business Bureau a couple of months ago, is Ted, if you want to pull a bunch of questions from here and put them in a document, I can go through and answer the stuff in that document, and we can send that with the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
As something, as a resource, maybe to just get everybody that way.
Okay.
And again, the general ones we'll do in there, but the stuff that is very specific, if so you can reach out to me. I know there are people all over the country on this webinar too. There is a local SBA office in your area as well that you can reach out to. So Google SBA office in Mississippi. I heard somebody was Mississippi on here, right?
Yep.
And there'll be somebody locally that can help you as well. Google Small Business Development Center in Mississippi. You'll be able to find somebody from there. But yeah, I think geez.
Do you want to take a look at a few more questions there?
Yeah, I'm just looking. So you do need to have decent credit. I saw that to get in economic injury EIDL loan. So they can be kicked back or declined because of credit score if it's not good enough. I can't give you a number, but that can be an issue. So there is a lot of confusion on the EIDL advance grant versus the EIDL loan. The loan is not forgivable at all. And again, we're still waiting on the rules for the PPP. What I've read so far says that you have to be 25% down, in revenue. We don't have anything further on that yet. EIDL advance grants, there may be more money there for folks. If you got X amount of dollars the first time, there may be some more there. So again, we're staying tuned on that. Businesses that were not started before February 15th of 2020, are not eligible for PPP. I think I saw a question about that in there. How do I know if I'm opted into an 8-week or 24-week covered period? It depends on the date of disbursement of your PPP funds. So if you received your PPP funds before June 5th, 2020, and you're automatically in the 8-week, but you have the option to choose 24-week, and you'll be given that option when you apply for forgiveness with the bank. If your loan was made after June 5th, you automatically have the 24-week covered period. Okay, so everybody's eligible for it. It just matters the date that you got your PPP loan. All right. Yeah, your business had to be started before February 15th, 2020 to be eligible for these. If you're an Uber driver and you are eligible for this, you cannot upgrade your vehicle due to mechanical or other issues and spend PPP funds on that. That's not the way it works. Again, it's for payroll, rent, utilities, and mortgage interest. The application process is different. Why is that different for companies? I don't know. All right, Ted, we can send this slide deck to everybody. Okay, so Karen has a good question here. If we received the $1,000 EIDL advance and then subtracted this when filing for PPP forgiveness and then repaid the bank the $1,000, how do I now get the $1,000 back I paid to the bank? That is something that folks who got these loans early are going to have to deal with. The bank will refund you that money. Again, it's going to be a little process, but the bank is where you go to get those funds back, and they'll be able to refund that money, because some people are already making payments on the loan and the portion that was left over because they did the 8-week covered period and spent their funds there. Stephanie is asking a question about EIDL reconsideration. So EIDL loans, there is a reconsideration process. People are going through that. I'll just say that as initially the first wave of getting an EIDL loan was time consuming because of the sheer volume. That volume is all in the EIDL reconsideration process. So that's where it's taken some time to get through that. So, just keep watching your emails, keep paying attention, but it's taken a little bit of time to get through this. The reconsideration process is much more detailed than the initial application as well. But just hold tight and stay consistent. The process is moving, but that's where the bulk of these EIDL loans are now. So, all right, I think so. We did not retain employees without payroll expenses. Is anything forgivable? So that's a good question. Up to 40% on rent and utilities may be forgivable. Your salary that you pay yourself as the business owner may be forgivable. But it depends on your loan size. So you will have the ability to get some forgiveness, but not full forgiveness at all. You would want to check out the safe harbors that apply based on if your business was forced to be closed, in the state that you live or the industry that you're in. So you want to see and talk to the bank about what might help you in that process as well. And with that, I think we'll call it a day here, Ted. And if there are any other questions, folks can email me or any of our partners here, or, you know, and maybe if you want to put a document together or something with anything we didn't get, we could do that.
Well, we're certainly going to get out the slide deck, and I think we'll just send it out to all the registrants, as a matter of fact.
And maybe what I'll do is put, why don't we put everybody's email in the slide deck, you know, who maybe a contact from SCORE, and Sarah and Sue and Courtney and Lynn and everybody here. You know, we'll put that information in there, so if they want to reach out, that they can have a spot to reach out to.
Well, and I want to remind all of the people on this webinar that although you know, we are this webinar is being presented from the Buffalo, Western New York area. The resources that are available on this topic, there are SBA offices throughout the United States. And so that's, you know, that's a resource you should not forget. Just because you're living in Mississippi or California, you certainly have a lot of resources out in your area. So thank you, Greg, very much for the presentation, for the answers to the questions that we could get to. I think we had I think we had maybe over 120, 130 questions. And
active
so,
chat box.
Very active chat box. So thank you to all of our attendees for being so active. This is a hot topic, and I know you want answers to your particular questions, and we hope that we can assist in one way or another in getting those to you. I want to thank our partners, Sarah Vesio, Susan McCartney, Lynn Oswald, Courtney Cortolo, and Melanie McGovern. Also to Nancy Sheehan, my cohort with SCORE, and particularly, again, Logan Clements, who is a business owner. She's in Seattle, by the way. We went a long way to find her, and she has been behind the scenes arranging with all of our technical aspects of this presentation. It's always interesting to go ahead and do one of these presentations to try and bring a lot of people in, and also add on to that the fact that we have, this is the first time that we've done anything with streaming to YouTube. And so I'm sure that there have been any number of people that have been streaming this presentation on YouTube. Thank you, Logan, for your assistance. Her group is the Logan Strategy Group in Seattle, and thank you so much for your support, Logan. Anyway, this again, Ted Galanowicz with SCORE. I hope that you will take advantage of all the resources in your particular area to answer these and other business questions. On behalf of SCORE Buffalo Niagara and all of our the SBA and all of our partners, thank you for joining us this morning. Hope to see you soon at another workshop webinar, and stay healthy out there. Thanks a lot for being